Hello, my name is McKie,
And I'm Antoinette McKie.
and we want to welcome you to
Mindful
Moments with the McKies.
And we are in season 1, A Look Within 25 Years of Marriage. And this is episode 9 that you're viewing. Intimacy changes over time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So one of the things we wanted to say was a mistake. One of the bigger mistakes that we made early on was comparing seasons instead of embracing them, right? As it pertains to intimacy, right? And so what we learned was that intimacy evolves as life changes, right?
Yeah.
And so we just want to encourage people to talk honestly about your needs without shame. This is your spouse, and you need to be able to share where you are in life, what you're feeling, what's going on, all of those things in terms of intimacy. And when we talk intimacy, we're not just talking about sex. Of course, we know early on in a relationship, sex is very important, right? Well, throughout the marriage, sex is always important, right, babe?
Yes, it is.
Sex is always important. I didn't mean to say it like that. But over life and over with the changes and things we go through in life, sometimes that intimacy looks a lot different. And it's not the way that it was initially. I'm sorry. Go ahead, babe.
Yes, and then when she says season, we're not talking about, summer, whether spring, summer, fall, and winter. Even though sometimes it feels like that, when we say season, we're talking about when we're in our, 20s. Then we evolve into our 30s. Then we make another evolve into our 40s, into 50, and so on.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what intimacy looked like when you want to talk about that, hon? What intimacy looked like when we were early on in our marriage?
You sure I can talk about that?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Okay.
Listen.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Well, listen, it was, I had one comparison and something just clicked in my head. It's almost like I was the caveman, she was the woman. So, there's a time, clock on the head, put it on my shoulder, and we do that. But as we got in our 40s,
as I got in my 40s, he's older than me.
As she got in her 40s, she was gonna hit me over my head and dragging me. So it was almost like, if I hit that corner of the wall, I'll slow down because I didn't know what was gonna happen. But in all seriousness, it was totally different. In the 20s, you was already you was ready. You was already, and then as time evolved, it was almost like, you have to plan these things. You can't just say, all right, let's, I looked at you, that look. You got in the 40. Sometimes that look didn't mean too much of nothing. The look would be like, not now. It will happen. You're going to get it, but not now. Honey.
Yeah. So, and we also learned that intimacy didn't just mean sex. So intimacy could be a nice evening, having a nice dinner, candlelight dinner alone with your husband, just sitting down talking, a calm talking with nice music in the background, sitting in front of the fireplace, just having some quality, quiet time. It was almost like a sexy time, but it didn't always have to include sex, right? And so we would do those things too, and that would feel good. Those times were good too. It didn't always have to be sexual, but just taking those moments, those intimate moments alone, and it, like he said, it changed. Early on in the marriage, sex was involved probably almost all the time. But then as we moved further, then it wasn't. When you start with children, you have life, even sickness. We found that sickness was a big deal. There were times when different medications you take will affect your body differently. So you had to you had to be creative when it came to intimacy and different things, because medication threw things off. Menopause. We talked about menopause as well. And with women, it could be on one end or the other. He's right when he said, when I hit my 40s, it was like I was knocking him over the head every time you turned around. So there were, you just go through different seasons, right? Then there was a season when intimacy felt like it didn't exist, right? And it was because of stress. When there's stressful things going on, we were going through various things in our marriage, some things that were external, but it was affecting us. So all of these types of things will affect intimacy. But what we learned is that we just had to be honest and talk about that, because there were some times when he might have been very uncomfortable. Like he said, he had to look around that corner and he didn't know what was coming. And so we had to talk about that. Or the times where he might have been chasing me, but I had a headache that day. So we needed to just talk about all of these things. Or the times when neither one of us, and we both thought something was wrong because we went through a period where neither one of us were interested in being sexual, yet we wanted to be intimate. And we had to talk about that too, and talk about how both of us were feeling about that. And so it's just important to remember that we have to be honest, and we have to talk about our needs with our spouse. We can't assume that they know, right? The way we did things at 20, even size makes a difference. All of that, and when I mean size, I mean our body size, makes a difference. As you gain weight, as you lose weight, all of those things make a difference. If I'm feeling uncomfortable about my physical body, and I might say, listen, babe, I need the lights off, whatever. All of these things, you have to talk about it. Now, he always made me feel very comfortable in my skin, even when I didn't feel comfortable in my skin. But it was something that I had to talk about so that he knew what was going on. So he could understand why I always wanted to turn the light off as I began to gain weight and different things. But today was just really about us talking and sharing that intimacy does change over time. We were just sitting down talking about what it was like when we first got married, and then what happened when I hit 40, and then what happened now that I'm 59 and he's 64. And we talked about the differences even now. And what it looks like for us, it might look different for other couples. When you talk to other couples and they talk about, we sit down and we might have conversations about intimacy. We don't need to compare our life with someone else's, or what they're going through, or what they've been through, or how they are, and say, oh, we should be like that. No, we should be like we are. We should have conversations about our needs, and we should be able to share with one another how we're feeling in whatever season we're in. But just know that medications can change things. Menopause can change things. Family life with children, with stressful jobs, if you're working 2 different schedules, all of these things, right? But it does change over time, and we just need to be mindful of those changes and be able to talk honestly.
Yes, and what just came to mind, as my wife was saying, and I think I said earlier, there are going to be certain times, like she said, with the kids and stuff like that, you're going to have to plan. You're going to have to plan. you know, when it, you know, you can have that time. And when I say plan, I don't necessarily mean planning when you're going to have it, but you have to build up to that. And it can start as simple as in the morning. As a husband, if that's it, then you start initiating it, and your wife will know. You know, little certain thing, she'll know. You know, or jokingly say something, a word that y'all use, and she'll know what that means, but it still means that you planned this. You planned it. So you know, you might be at work, you might call her, hey, how you doing? How you doing? A little chuckle or something like that, and she might be on, oh, I can't talk to you now. I'm at work. I'm at work. You say, okay, we'll talk later. And then you'll laugh and she'll laugh. And you go, all of this is building up. So when the kids are down and stuff like that, you know, you have already laid out, I hate to say, the format and everything like that. And hopefully you both will be able to enjoy each other. You know, even little things like this, you don't stop doing things like this when you get in your 50s or to your 60s. You don't start, you know, because you still desire each other even at that age. You'll still desire each other, and your desire might be different. Your desire might be not always about you want to have sex, or it'd be like, okay, let's look at a movie together. Let's have a conversation about something. And like I said, with me, I'll talk, but I'm not a conversationalist. You know, at some point in it, you know, she has my attention, but at a certain time, you know, I'm like, oh boy, we've been talking for 25 minutes. Now I'm ready to move on to something else. I'm, hey, come on, let's look at a show together, or you know, or anything. You know, so you just have to be mindful. You know, and as I said, everything you have to. It may seem like it's a lot, but you have, as you get more mature. I'm not going to say older. When you get more mature, you have to plan. Honey?
Yeah. So, yeah, one of the things when he talks about planning, it makes me think about, is I always say, men are like microwaves, but a woman is like a crock pot. You know, they're just ready, and that's it. But a woman likes to be, you know, wooed, so to speak. A woman, it takes time, especially if I'm home and I got kids and I'm dealing with all these other things, you know, and it goes both ways too. You know, sometimes husbands are that same way, but typically I know for me that it has to start in the morning. You know, we used to have lunch boxes when we would go to school, and we would put like little notes in each other's lunch boxes, and some of those times would be the times I know what's going on today. I know what he might want tonight. Just the little things that you do. A call. Back in the day, it was a call. Now you might send a cute little text. You know, just little things like that to help create the atmosphere. Right? And like he said, so this way, by the time the kids are sleeping, you're all set. You're ready to spend that quiet, intimate time with your spouse, and you have already set the stage for that, right? And so I just think it's important to have conversations. I remember times when we didn't conversate. I might not have shared how I was feeling, and then I said, you know what, I need to tell him. I can't expect him to know how I'm feeling. I remember when I started chasing him. At first I felt bad, and I was like, because he was like, what are you doing? What's going on? And then And I had to have a conversation with him so he would know what was happening with me and what was going on, because it was like night and day. So he thought
it was comical. It was like the road runner and the coyote. You know, I was like, I'm trying to get away. And she's like setting traps. I'm like, I got it. No, I know what's waiting for me there. I'm going the other way.
But I mean, we laugh about it now, but it was really different for him until we actually had the conversation. Then he was like, okay, all right, I understand what's going on here. But it was just a matter of talking about it. You know what I mean? And then the times when, as I was going through menopause, and things were just hard. They were rough. There were things, my libido had changed and some things were different, And so there were times that I had to meet him where he was, where he might have been ready. And I was saying to myself, well, not today, baby. So there are just different times, different seasons, different things you're going through. And you want to be able to share with your spouse where you are, what's going on, what you're feeling, and what's happening with you, because things will change. Different medications might make that level of intimacy difficult, but you find different things that work for you without shame, without being embarrassed. This is your spouse, This is the man you vowed to spend the rest of your life with. You can talk to him, and he should be able to talk to you. So these are the kinds of conversations. Some people might find them hard conversations. When I first married my husband, he grew up in a household where things like intimacy and sex were not talked about. We had family meetings from the time we were very young children, and we talked about all of these things. So at first, I was a bit much for him to even talk about certain things, because he was like, they gave me a blue book, and that's how I learned about life. And I'm like, what? So we didn't talk about the blue book. You told me about the little blue book.
Yeah, but it's not like a car.
But anyway, so some of those things he had to get used to me being very free and open to talk about things, and that's different too. Sometimes if you come from a different point of reference, your growing up is different, and so you have to talk about that too. There would be things that would make him turn purple that I would want to talk about. And, and I'm like, what? I'm just thinking this is normal to have these kinds of conversations, whereas it took him a while to get used to having those kind of conversations. So, I mean, we just want you to understand that it's important to talk about intimacy at every level, sexual, non-sexual, whatever changes you're going through in life, be it menopause, medication, sickness, even exhaustion, whatever is going on, have the conversations. We're only going to be able to just hold each other. That's it. And now, for us, it's funny because we both have sleep apnea. Now, we're telling on ourselves. We both have sleep apnea, and we both use the C-PAP machine. So we know that once the C-PAP machines go on, that's it. Go ahead, honey. I see you over there.
No. It's like I said. It's gonna be funny. It's gonna be serious, but it's gonna be funny. And I some time back I told her, I said, with the C-PAP machine, if the intimacy is almost like, for those who know Star Wars, it was almost like Mr. and Mrs. Darth Vader. We couldn't even hear what the other one was saying, so we had to take off the mask to say what we wanted. So like I said, it's we're evolving. That's the only thing I can say. We're evolving.
Yeah. Just beware if you wear a CPAP machine, 4:00 in the morning, if your husband taps you on the shoulder while you're sleeping.
My God.
And he says, take off the CPAP machine. You know what that means. But no, I'm sorry. Okay, I shouldn't have said that. All right, I went too far. Sorry. Anyway, guys, we just wanted to share that we were talking about it earlier today. It was important to us. It was a topic that we thought was interesting to talk about today. So that's why we came on today to share. just from the hip, just to share how intimacy does change over time. So we just wanted to share those little tidbits with you today.
And like I said, we want to thank you guys for taking your time out. You could be doing anything else on a Sunday, but we appreciate you. And we thank you for subscribing and just tuning in and listening. And hopefully this helps you. All right. And as I say, I'm Pierce McKie.
And I'm Antoinette McKie.
And we want to welcome you to Mindful Moments with the McKies.
We want to thank you for tuning in to Mindful Moments with the McKies. This has been Season 1, A Look Within, 25 Years of Marriage. And you have just watched Episode 9, Intimacy Changes Over Time. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good night.
God bless.
God bless.